Hello, my name is Edith and I like to show and tell my craft stuff to strangers on the internet. So thank you for being here. In this video, I'm going to be making a top inspired by an outfit worn by Paige Mathews in an episode of Charmed. It is the second part to a outfit inspired by Paige Mathews from Charmed two-parter that I started last week. So last week I made the skirt that goes with this top. This week, I'm gonna make the top. It's my first time ever sewing pintucks. I don't know how it's gonna go, but I'm very, very excited. I am not an expert, obviously, as it's my first time ever sewing pintucks. Don't know what I'm doing, to be quite honest. I know some things. I've got crafting experience, but I'm figuring it out as I go along. I am learning. So, with that said, let's take a look at the outfit that has inspired this make. On the panels, either side of the button placket, the fabric has a really beautiful broderie anglaise design. So that could have been stitched on afterwards, but I don't think it was. It looks very integrated in the fabric and it doesn't look like the fabric is pulling on it as if it's been sort of inserted as a panel. So I think it is part of the fabric. A really good thing to make something like this would have been a vintage broderie tablecloth. I don't have one of those, unfortunately, but that kind of large-scale broderie design with a lot of space around it is, you can find that pretty well on vintage tablecloths, so yeah. I love that there is a light peplum on the bottom of the top. I think that it echoes the tiers of the skirt really well and is one of the main reasons that this whole outfit has the continuity of a dress, even though it is a two-piece. The back of the top is laced up. I'm not going to do that because, frankly, I don't want to. I don't really like that style of closure. I just don't find it very practical. I think it looks nice, but yeah, I don't really want to do that. Also, I just don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be messing around with grommets if I don't have to. This style draws on the style of the traditional prairie dress. And I think what's quite funny actually about this is that, well, maybe not funny, but it's interesting, ironic maybe, is that the prairie dress obviously was very much centred around modesty and structured covering in that way. And this particular dress, even though it draws on that style, is very much not putting those things at the forefront of its design. It's not a priority for this dress to cover. In fact, actually, there is a joke in the show based around the fact that this dress is not particularly modest. So that's quite interesting. Though having said that, it definitely kept the spirit of restraint in terms of the prairie dress because this top is tight. I'm not going to be making the top as tight as it is. It doesn't really look like it fits very well. It doesn't look like it would be comfortable. You can see there's like creasing in some of the panels where the fabric is stretching. And then also the gape at the buttonholes, that's usually caused by too much or too little fabric. It's giving way at a weak point so that fabric can go more over this area. And I don't want it to look like that. I'm going to try and make a top that fits me well. We'll see how that goes. The pattern that I'm using for this project is the McCall's M8306, and it is a skirt and top pattern separate, which the Paige Mathews look also is. And I'm going to be making views A and C. So in my previous video, I made the skirt, which was view C. And in this video, I'm going to be making the top, which is view A. It doesn't have a lace-up feature at the back, but it does have a tie waist at the front, which I think echoes that lace-up feature quite well. It's also got buttons down the front, so that's how you get it on and off instead of the lace-up at the back. As I mentioned in the last video, I could not find broderie fabric that had big enough panels that I could recreate exactly what was going on the front of that top. I've just made do with some cotton lawn, which I've pre-washed, pre-ironed beforehand, and then to still honour the masses of broderie on this design, I'm using a lot of trim, a lot of trim. I'm also using these buttons. There's 7 of them, and they are, how wide? Well, 7 1 centimetre wide buttons. Pretty simple design. So I have, before filming, cut out all of the pattern pieces because there were 9 of them. Well, more than 9 really in terms of individual pieces, but there were 9 paper pieces, and doing it all on camera, it would have just taken me a really, really long time. What I've also done beforehand is applied the interfacing to the 3 facing pieces. I have had some unfortunate bubbling with the interfacing, which I just find it very difficult to avoid bubbling with finer fabrics like cotton lawn. I've looked online for various tips and things for how to improve that. I've seen people say that you can soak it beforehand to like rehydrate all the glue. Oh, I've also seen that you can use interlining instead of interfacing, which is where you use a stiffer fabric to give the structure and stability of interfacing. You just baste it to the piece of fabric instead of ironing on the interfacing. I do want to give it a go. I just need to do more research into how versatile that technique actually is. To get started, I'm going to transfer the markings on these front panel pieces because they have pin tucks. That is the first step. Do the pin tucks. I love pin tucks. I don't know why I've never done them before. They're beautiful and I want to do them on everything. I have pressed the pin tucks into the panels. There's 4 panels on the front with pin tucks pressed on the fold line. The next step is to stitch 1/16 or 1.5 millimeters away from the folds. I'm just taking a look at all of my feet to see if there's one that I think would be better to do pin tucks with. Not really sure I know enough about them to say, oh, that one would be better, that one would be worse. That's almost 2 millimeters, tiny bit smaller than that. It's quite difficult once you get down to the very end to keep it straight. So you just got to go really, really slow. It's tricky. It's gone well. It's gone okay. I think the really tiny stitch length actually looks really, really good. I have done all of the pin tucks. I now just need to press the pin tucks to the outside. So I'm going to go do that. I also need to press under the edge of the very centerpiece, which has got the button placket on it. I'm not going to mark the buttonholes until the end because I do that right before I'm about to make them. Once I've sewn everything together, just in case there's a little bit of misaligning, I can then correct. The pin tucks look kind of bad. Only on one of them. I should redo it. No. Do you know what? I feel there's going to be a few different things on this that maybe go a little bit wrong, so I'll just call this a 12. I now need to press under 1 centimetre on the long edge of each of these, apart from the notched edge where it attaches to the side pieces. And then I can attach some trim. To add trim to these, I'm joining the 2 pressed edges here and here together, and then adding the trim on top like this. What I'm wondering is, I've got some ribbon, which I was definitely going to do this with on the neckline, but I'm unsure whether to add it here. I think if I do, there's a risk I won't have enough ribbon for tying the waist, but I think that's okay. I can just order some more and tie the waist at a later date. I just think that's much nicer than the way that this looks, where it's just sort of popped on top. It would completely cover that seam. I think I'm going to do it. To attach it, it wants me to stitch quite close to the finished edge of the lace, which could be a bit of an issue. It's curvy. It already went horribly wrong. I actually think it would be better to stitch these 2 panels together first and then just attach the lace by hand on top. I'm gonna do that, that's what I'm gonna do. I bought new snips. How long do you guys leave it before you just buy something that you've lost? I have my 2 front panels. The next step is to attach those to the side pieces. I had some ice cream and sat in front of the fan for ages whilst I was attaching the trim, so I'm feeling much cooler now. Most of the costuming in Charmed was done by Eilish Zabrowski. She is a veteran when it comes to costuming. She's done so much stuff. Most recently, she worked on a bunch of the Marvel movies, like Supergirl. I didn't really want to do a deep dive into that for reasons. So I thought instead I would find some trivia out about the set, specifically the Halliwell Manor set. The outside of the house that is filmed, is actually a real house. It's called the Inez house or Inez house. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. It's a real house in Los Angeles, even though the show is set in San Francisco. It's on a street called Carroll Avenue, and that street has loads and loads of Victorian houses on it. It's sort of like a tourist spot. You can go and visit it. Other houses on that street have been used for other things as well. There is a house on that street that was used in the Thriller music video, Michael Jackson's one. And there was another house on that street that was used in the movie Grandma's Boy. I've never heard of it. The house was built in 1887, and we don't know who the architect was, but we do know that it was built for a councilman called David Inez. And that's why it's called the Inez house. The real house actually has 5 bedrooms, even though Charmed Manor, Halliwell Manor only has 3 bedrooms, which is a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Because if you've watched Charmed, you'd have noticed that they have like a huge drawing room situation, like a solarium, a massive kitchen, and then upstairs they just have like 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. Pretty bonkers. But, you know, they need 3 bedrooms for the stories to work, so. But the real house has 5. The interior of the house, as it is shot in Charmed, is not the inside of the Inez house. I have seen things online that have said that what was built was a replica of the inside of the Inez house, but I couldn't really verify that, so I don't know if that's true or not. The interior of the house, as it is shot, was a set that was built at Ray Art Studios, and that was there until the end of season 6. And then they moved studio for 7 and 8, and they were filmed on a set in Paramount Studios. There are absolutely loads and loads and loads of people credited for art department, set design, set dressing. There's a lot. And I really did struggle to work out who was responsible for which bits at which times. And I think in the future I'll probably do a deeper dive into that kind of thing, because I personally am really interested. There's a lot of things on the set that I think are amazing. I definitely want to make a lot of stuff inspired by the set of Charmed, probably more than any other show. I am inspired by that set, but I couldn't get my head around the amount of credits there were. That would be a massive video. Another fun bit of trivia is that the Book of Shadows was hand-drawn by 3 different artists. Carol Wood in season 1 and the first half of season 2. And then in the second half of season 2, Dan Habercorn took over. And he stayed on until season 7, so he did most of the work on the Book of Shadows, and I think he had an assistant as well who did some of the work on it. And then for the last half of season 8, it was Derek Barron. And you can tell from just watching it that it's hand-drawn. Like, it's obviously not printed. You can see so much variegation in the ink and the colours, and it's just clearly handmade, hand-drawn. At some point, I would quite like to make a sample blanket inspired by the blanket that they have over the sofa in quite a few of the seasons of Charmed. It's quite a simple blanket really, but I think it just looks so cosy. Stitch front to back at side seams. Next step is to attach the facing to itself, and then finish the edges of the facing, then attach it to the inside along the top of the top. It's actually a real struggle to be sewing today, but I just didn't want to have another day of not having done the project. I feel awful. Did you guys know that of all of the actors who played Halliwell sisters in Charmed, the actor who played Piper Holly Marie Coombs. She's actually the youngest out of all of the actors that played Halliwell sisters. If I were to make this again, which I definitely will, I would probably extend the facing, like extend it downwards so that there was more of a lining around the chest area, because this particular fabric is really lovely for the hot weather, but it's definitely going to be quite see-through. And I think it's going to be odd actually having an opaque facing in this area. And then where you would actually want the coverage, it's just going to be nothing. And there's going to be a stark line, like you're definitely going to be able to see where the facing ends. I think as well, I would probably attach the trims with a really nice contrasting hand stitch that was actually a bit more considered than what I did. I just attached it. I didn't do a decorative stitch of any sort, but I think a decorative stitch in a pink or a blue, pretty much any colour, would look really, really, really good. I think that would be beautiful. Getting these to lie flat is not easy with the interfacing in. It is a whole new day. A whole new Jake. It got way too, well, it didn't. It got cooler during the day, but I had just been hot for too long yesterday to continue sewing. But before I did pack up, I pressed down the top at the front, so pressed it over, and also pressed over the button plackets. And then I also did the sleeves. I didn't do them exactly how it said because it was just bamboozling my brain a little bit, but it's fine for a toile, the way that I finished it. It was too hot, I'm too hot. My next steps are to make the peplum, the channel for the ribbon to go through around the waist, and then to attach the trim to the neck and the armhole. Stitch the two peplum pieces together, then narrow hem the long edge, then attach the short edge to the top and line up the front of them with the fold line of the button placket. 3/4 inch hem. This is way too curvy. I'm getting out the hemming tape. This hem is vile. Next time I make this, I'm gonna do the hem with bias tape instead. It would be much easier, it would look nicer. This is so bad. I've actually just given up on doing a half decent job. The tape is all melting. Ugh. I've just given up and it's the beginning of the day. It's too hot. Check this bit out. Remember my last video where I like pre-basted everything so I wouldn't get like a single pointy bit? Those days are gone. The reason I am rushing so much is because I actually only have a few hours before I need to leave to go and stay at a friend's house for the week. And I just don't have time. Got a bit of jeopardy now. And also, it's not gonna come out perfect. I've just given myself an excuse, basically. I really need to work on tops. That is a skill area I need to improve. Before I attach this, I'm just gonna double check that all of my... I've only got a few loose, well, one loose pin tuck on either side. I also attached the trim so that it would lift up in the same way as the pin tucks. It would be loose. I just thought that was a cute touch. So I'm just making sure that everything is completely flat underneath the seam where I want it to be, facing in the right direction as well. We are stitching the edge of the peplum, but then slip stitching the button placket closed. I don't have time for slip stitching. I'm so annoyed. This trim, it's got bits in it that are just disgusting. Like it had this bit at the beginning that I thought maybe had a stamp or something on it. And I just cut that off. But then I realised that that ink or whatever it was actually lower down as well. So I don't know if you can see that there. And then all over these bits of trim, there's just areas like here, 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 that are just discoloured. I'll see if it comes out in the wash. Hopefully it does. Anyway, this bit of trim, matching these, goes on the tops and then folds around. And then the trim that goes around the armholes and the neck hole attaches here, tucks underneath that one, and then you'd cut that main one here. Another thing that I would change next time is that I would add interfacing to the button placket, and I would fold these over together. I think that just looks terrible. Fold that under. To that edge. And hope it covers it. Yay, it does. I'm going to finish securing that and then move on to the other side. I've added the trim around the armholes and the neck hole, done it all, and I've done the same at the back on the pointy bits as I did at the front, where I cut a little bit and then overlapped it just to get a really clean corner. The next thing to do is add the waistband channel where the ribbon is supposed to go. So I was reading the instructions and it said that I needed to ease the shirt to fit the waistband. That would have been a lot of easing and I don't have time, frankly. So what I've done instead is I've cut the waistband again and I've cut it a lot longer than the original pattern. I'm just going to attach it without any easing and then I have a solution. I've pressed the waistband edges in. The way that I'm going to make it okay is instead of using ribbon, because I don't have enough ribbon left, I'm going to use this piece of elastic to cinch the shirt in. That will still give it that even gathered look that the easing in would have done without me having to actually do the work. And then I'm going to use this ribbon that remains to make a faux waist tie at the front. Right, both ends are attached and the ribbon is also attached. So I'm just going to now cut the ribbon in the very middle. Just chucked a bit of tracing paper under there to get it to behave. Yeah, that's fine. Final step, buttons and button placket. Conventionally, I should have right going over left, but the left placket and front piece, it actually looks a lot better than the right one, so I'm just going to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is mark out the buttonholes, then make the buttonholes on the machine with a buttonhole foot, and then mark where I need to put the buttons through the buttonholes. I just remembered another piece of Charmed trivia whilst I'm getting the buttonholes ready. The pilot was actually filmed with an entirely different actor for Phoebe. Before it went to air, that actor realised that she couldn't actually play Phoebe long term because she didn't feel comfortable with it for religious reasons. And so they had to refilm the entire first episode with Alyssa Milano. Going to sew a test buttonhole before doing it on this fabric because I always like to see what it's going to be like before I actually do it on the garment. I think the machine actually loves to make buttonholes in this fabric. I'm going to unpick my buttonholes and I think probably wrap up here because I'm going to just take my buttons with me and sew the buttons on at a second location. My reflective thoughts. First of all, don't sew during a heat wave. If you are a beginner with this kind of thing, I am, you can't just knock it together in like a few hours. Not a few hours, I spent like hours on this. I've probably spent at least 12 hours, 12, 14 hours overall on this shirt, and it wasn't enough time. Having said that, as a beginner, you also need to make a rubbish one of these or 6 before it's going to come out good. Just own that you're going to make a rubbish one and then make that rubbish one, because that's an important step on the way to making a good one. And yeah, I really feel like I've achieved that. This hasn't come out anywhere near as bad as I thought it was going to, as I messed up various bits along the way. When it's cool and I have more time, I'm going to make an amazing shirt. Anyway, here is the finished shirt, buttons on, with the skirt from last week. It's the full Paige Mathews inspired look. Hopefully on a beach, but we'll see. Gentle viewers, the top did not fit. It wasn't unwearable. I think it was a bit short in the sleeves for me personally, and maybe I didn't take enough of the fabric out in the pin tucks. It is a lot gapey around the neck. Adjustments will definitely need to be made next time. I can wear this modified to make it fit-ish. Next time I would forego the interfacing because it's made a top that would have been really great for the heat, kind of stuffy, and I don't think it needs it from a structural perspective either. I would replace it with a lining in the same material as the shirt, so there would still be a little bit more structure in the sleeves, but not an interfacing amount. It wasn't a reach that I would be able to get to the beach because I actually live on the coast, The variable was whether I would be well enough to go, and fortunately I was. I'm really looking forward to making this entire outfit again, in different colours or maybe with a printed fabric. I think it would look really great on a fabric with some colourful embroidered details. Overall, I think this is a really cool look, and it is really comfy for the warm weather. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you feel your time was spent well enough. My question for you this week is, what are your favourite little touches to add to a garment, like trim or pintucks? This week mine is broderie trim, but I change my mind frequently. I'm very fickle when it comes to decorative details. As always, here are some awkward clips of me trying to get a thumbnail photo to see you off. Guys, I forgot to add a button.